let's start. Hello again from me, and thank you for joining us to this panel about countering cross-border disinformation in the Balkans. My name is Bardilja Shari. I'm the Executive Director of the Metamorphosis Foundation, an NGO based in Skopje, North Macedonia. And today I have the honor to be the moderator of this session, where our panelists will present their experiences and approach to this challenging phenomena related to disinformation. Working in the Balkan region is always challenging, not only because of its troublesome history, but also because of its present challenges that are numerous, starting from combating corruption, state capture, illegal wiretapping and surveillance, freedom of expression, migrant crisis, and to the very current crisis related to the COVID-19 pandemic, and this is just to name a few. And on top of all the challenges, or better to say entwined with all those challenges that I mentioned, are disinformation that aim to destabilize the region and make it backslide from democracy and disrupt peace. And we all know and we witnessed several times how dangerous and threatening can be the effect of disinformation, not only to political processes, but also to our health, as we saw lately with the disinformation related to COVID-19. In the Balkans, like elsewhere, disinformation and manipulation do not know borders. Thanks to the internet and its very democratic nature, information, but also disinformation can circulate between the national political media sphere in each of the countries across borders, then get adapted to fit the requirement of local propaganda, local politicians, radicalizing groups of people and creating divide. Very often, in the Balkans, the same disinformation circulates to the media from several countries in the region and come back to the country of origin in a more toxic form, inflaming hate speech, discrimination, and unfortunately, sometimes even conflict. And of course, disinformation is also used by various groups and countries with hostile agenda for the region to disrupt ongoing processes of consolidation of democratic institutions, exploiting and deepening existing ethnic, cultural, religious, and ideological and economic divides. And in Macedonia, but also in the region, in recent years, this propaganda is weaponized around key political developments such as elections, referendums, to radicalize vulnerable groups, inciting them to cause problems aimed at stopping EU accession and also, for some countries, NATO accession. Usually disinformation and manipulation are done around sensible topics that are easy to exploit, that can create divide not only within each country, but also in the region. I will use just some of the most exploited topics that were used and are still used to manipulate audiences across the borders in the Balkans. Let me just share the screen if I am able to do so. Okay. Share. I hope you see the screen, but it's not moving. No. No, I cannot, unfortunately. Just a moment. I don't know, maybe you're able to see it, maybe not, but
we saw your screen, Bardil. We saw it.
Yes? Okay.
Yeah, we did.
Okay. So this is the list of some of the hot, sensible topics that are inspiring disinformation campaigns in the Balkans. So some of the threats, just to see how complex the region is. There are threats that are mainly sourced in Serbia about the so-called Greater Albania, and it's very often exploited in the dialogue between Kosovo and Serbia. Then there are threats related to EU and NATO causing conflict and animosity toward member states in order to encourage veto. Then very exploited topics is the name issue between Greece and North Macedonia and false interpretation of the Prespa agreement, which was interpreted as a betrayal of national interest in both countries. then issues between Bulgaria and North Macedonia about historical figures, identity issues, and also false interpretation and manipulation related to the Good Neighborly Relations Agreement that North Macedonia and Bulgaria signed. Then, of course, the migrant crisis in the Western Balkan that was used by several politicians as a justification and also as a threat for politicization of Islamization and influence in our societies. And of course, the late pandemic crisis, we saw a lot of disinformation in our media about COVID-19, about the anti-vaccine movement, pseudo-education, religious propaganda, etc., just to further deepen and amplify the threats and fear of COVID. Just a moment now to get back to my Zoom or to stop sharing the screen. Just a moment. I don't know if I'll remember. Do I still share the screen or not?
Yes, you do.
Because I don't see anything.
Yes.
You still see your screen.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, now it's good. Now it's okay.
Okay, so acknowledging all those threats, 5 members of the international fact-checking networks from 5 Balkan countries joined forces with 5 other media organizations that promote journalism and public accountability, and we formed the Information Network for the Balkans. It provides a nucleus of wide front of multi-stakeholder action against populist and extremist demagoguery, but also combine efforts to combat disinformation in the region, protect journalism from corrupt authoritarian politicians and state-sponsored cyber attacks. So within the panel, each speaker will provide perspective of their own country based on the experience of the organization and share a concrete example of countering cross-border disinformation. And without further ado, let me introduce our distinguished panelists. First, let me introduce Claudiana Capo from Factoia, Albania. She's the managing director of the first and newly established fact-checking organization in Albania. Ms. Capo has been involved in many journalism and media work for many years. She has been a journalism in Top Channel, a leading TV station in Albania. She was also an editor-in-chief in the Albanian public television. She has run numerous awareness-raising campaigns and activities for local and international NGOs, and she received many awards related to her work. Then Thanos Sitistas from Ellenica Hoaxes. Thanos serves as a senior editor at Ellenica Hoaxes, the first fact-checking media outlet in Greece that aims to combat disinformation through debunking fake news on a variety of topical issues from politics and public health to migration. Then Milena Popovic from Serbia. She works for the NGO Crta from Belgrade. She's the editor-in-chief of Istinomer, the first and one of the most influential political fact-checking platform in Serbia. Prior to Istinomer, she has worked as a journalist for daily newspaper for 8 years and also as a freelance reporter for several regional portals. Last but not least, my colleague Filip Stojanovski. He's a director for partnership and resource development at Metamorphosis Foundation and also one of the founders of Metamorphosis Foundation. As part of the Metamorphosis team, Philip participated in establishing the first initiative introducing political fact-checking in the country, Truth Meter, in 2011. And then later in 2012, with the support from USAID, Metamorphosis established the Media Fact-Checking Service, the first of its kind in the wider Balkan region, and Philip served for 5 years as manager of this fact-checking service. He's currently managing the Critical Thinking for Media Literacy project. So this is our panelists. I'm looking forward to hearing their presentation and to share with us their experience. But before that, just very quick, some very basic rules. Each of the participants will have 5 to 7 minutes for their presentation. After that, there will be time for question and comments. So we can do it by raising your hand, meaning that you have to click reaction here, so I will let you speak if we have enough time, or just write in the chat your question and I will read it aloud for you, and then one of our panelists will answer. So let's start. Please, Claudiana, the online floor is yours.
Thank you. So I will, as Bardul explained, I present Factoria, the first fact-checking services in Albania. I'm now going to screen my presentation with you. So Factoria, it's the first fact-checking services in Albania. For the people that want to know a little bit about Albania. Albania is a small country located in the Southeast Europe, west of the Balkan Peninsula, and the shared land borders with Montenegro to the north, Kosovo to the northeast, North Macedonia to the east, and Greece to the south. A country that today has a registered population of 2.8 million, according to the latest data of Instat. For 15 years, the Albanian people has lived under a strong totalitarian regime, which saw it ends in 19th. From this time period until now, so for 30 years, didn't stop the immigration of Albania outside the borders of Albania, but also the migration within Albania. Even though there isn't specific numbers, it is believed that over 1 million Albanian citizens live abroad. During 2019 alone, according to the Eurostat, more than 24,000 Albanians have requested a political asylum. The main pillars of Albanian economy are agriculture, construction, tourism and services, and the industry. During the last 9 months, Albania has been severely hit by an earthquake where 51 persons lost their lives and thousands of others were damaged. The economic damage is calculated around 985 million euros. One of the country's biggest coastal cities is Durrës, and have received the gravest damages, which brought huge repercussion on the economy. After the earthquake, the COVID-19 pandemic nailed the country. The low resources in the health sector and a fragile economy brought an increase of unemployment, which is officially expected to surpass more than 60,000 persons, and the closing down of hundreds of businesses. But while the health and the economy are the gravest emergency for the country, Albania must apply a series of reforms as the main condition for its membership in the European Union. The justice reform is one of the hottest issues in Albania. The lack of Supreme Court has created a backlog of 30,000 cases. There isn't a constitutional court, unlike any other country. Opposition is out of the parliament since the local election 3 years ago. Albania and North Macedonia are ahead of their future general election, but in Albania, the electoral reform, one of the main conditions of the international community, is still unfinished. During this last year, journalists are under the pressure of politics and the business community, which control the information that is broadcasted to the large audience. Even the latest report of Freedom House shows a significant decrease of media freedom in Albania by giving an evaluation of 3.4 out of 5 possible, which is a demonstration of a hybrid democracy. On July 13 of 2019, the first fact-checking organization, Factoria, is registered in the court of Tirana in Albania. Its mission is to determine the veracity of statements and promises of high public officials and how they spend the public funds. Now this organization is part of International Fact-Checking Network, which accredits the professionalism, transparency, and also integrity of our work, and part of the Balkan Network for Disinformation. For the first time in our country, we use this methodology, and it's very important because the Factoria, a month after its official establishment as a media organization in August of 2019, asked 12 institutions for detailed information regarding the expenditure of the heads of this institution in their travels abroad for work, especially for the cost of flying, tickets and hotel. A large part of them didn't respond. Some ministries brought the required information, which showed that a minister spent 700 euros per night to sleep in a hotel abroad and paid for tickets 2 or 3 times of the value of the market. After this scandal that went all over the news and was trumped by the opposition and the civil society, the institution refused to continue giving information by violating the Freedom of Information Act. Paktoe filed a complaint to the Commissioner for Information, and today, a year later, we are on trial with for 12 sued institutions. During the quarantine, because of the pandemic, the number of false news and disinformation in Albania, but also abroad, also in Balkan, was really high. In this video below, we are bringing an example. Just a second to give a play. Okay. Okay. This is an example how the head of Albanian government, Edi, posted a video shot in Algeria, but he wrote that these were the actions that police took in Spain if the measures are not respected. We bring it in our website in Faktoia. After, let's say, 2 hours, he said that even he can be part of misinformation or disinformation. Faktoia is the first and only organization in Albania dedicated to the fact-checking. From the beginning of the pandemic, has been focused not only on reporting and giving updates of the situation, but also in determining the veracity of the facts that are related to the safety in people's lives. During this period, Faktoia has determined the veracity of series of statements and promises that affect the Balkans. I am giving an example. On March 18th of this year, the head of government, Edi said regarding a statement he made regarding the numbers of tests conducted in 6 countries on the region, including Albania. The fact-checking of Faktoia, referring of the official data, showed that the numbers that our Prime Minister made public didn't match with the real numbers, and moreover, it creates the conviction that they were willing change to disinformation, because all the numbers were lower to demonstrate the superiority of Albania in the region as the country with the highest number of COVID-19 tests. Faktoia now is a media organization that is faithfully applying the methodology of International Fact-Checking Network and also the Code of Ethics, which resulted in many journalist students to see Faktoia as a place where they would want to work without being influenced by the interest of the owner or the politician. So this is, I don't know about the timing, but this is what I have prepared to present Faktoia, but also the Albania context of, so because it's a small country, the context of Albania, and also the context of the media freedom in Albania.
Thank you, Claudiana.
Thank you.
For the question, please write them on the chat, and we will answer them later. Okay. Now I would like to give the floor to Philip. Philip, please continue.
Thank you very much, and thank you for your attention, and thanks to Claudie for her introduction, because many of the characteristics that she made about Albania are similar in one or another degree for the other Balkan countries. What we when we realize that we have many common problems with the neighbors, and especially, like you said, Claudie, the countries try to compete with each other in certain aspects, and that is often a point of the misinformation, because false or misinterpreted data about the region or the place of the country at certain ranking are used for political purposes. But in general, we realized after doing fact-checking for so long, and also trying to address the issue of cross-border disinformation, which is a disinformation that starts in one country, but then it's taken over in another country by their media or political actors and changed, metamorphosed into for a different purpose. So it mutates like a virus, serving the local host, but then it could be also transferred back across the borders in a more evil form. We realized that fact-checking is not enough. And we talked to our colleagues from different countries, and of course in different manners, trying to promote responsible journalism in other genres too. So investigative journalism or watchdog journalism, not only fact-checking as the essential form of journalism. And we came together to conclusion to form the network, which has now 10 members in the countries that you see at the screen, I hope. I will share just a few examples also related to these cross-border issues. I'm sorry, I'm also not so good with this. So the first example would be related to how this information can mutate. So the first example is how a statement of a Greek politician made within their local discourse about the Prespa agreement that was signed in 2018. So this was almost 2 years ago. In July, he made a statement that the two countries who signed the agreement would be kind of awarded by the European Union with development funds. However, this statement was misinterpreted in Slovenia by claiming that the two actual politicians received a bribe of 30 million euros to sign that agreement. And moreover, through a network of websites that are and media that are present in North Macedonia, it was amplified not only once but twice. Every year at the anniversary of the agreement, the same disinformation was disseminated. Last year we intercepted, and we actually determined that both the creators of the disinformation in Slovenia and the amplifiers in North Macedonia have similar ownership, which is related to the Hungarian establishment. So we realized that, and then it's not only the media, but also a troll army or a whole ecosystem of disinformation that was spreading and respreading the disinformation again and again, and which also, of course, affects the relations between North Macedonia and Greece, because it creates animosities in this scale. Another more current example is how recent closures of the borders across the region were misused to sow ethnic tensions within North Macedonia. So you probably know most of the tourist countries with coastline in the Balkans are tourist destinations, where the countries were landlocked. Their main their population considers going to the beach a very important part of their yearly life. And so a lot of people were eager for borders to open so they could plan their vacations. However, this when the countries started reopening the borders, this was also used as a point of disinformation. One example is that when the Albanian border was announced to open, the Prime Minister made an announcement saying that he welcomes the visitors, but also cautioned the people from neighboring countries about the pandemic, that it's not over. However, through mistranslation in North Macedonia, this was presented as if he's only inviting ethnic Albanians to come to the Albanian coastline. which was then used to create tensions between the ethnic communities in this multi-ethnic setting. And this also reverberates, like Bardil said, to the neighboring countries which have ethnic Albanian population or have some sort of issue that exploits nationalism. Another similar example, this example was debunked very quickly, both by intervention of the authorities and by intervention of the fact checkers of our critical thinking for media-wise literacy project, because we were able to supply proper translation and to explain the context, because a lot of people in Macedonia are ethnic Albanians and can provide the actual translation. However, this type of misinformation didn't stop. Few days later, there was an upsurge of COVID epidemic in North Macedonia, especially after a certain incidents of impunity which involved religious institutions, both about Easter, the Ramadan holiday, and however, a network of several media started to peddle disinformation about Greece closing the border only to certain municipalities which happen to have communities of different ethnic or religious origin than the biggest community, ethnic Macedonians who are Christians. So it was targeting Muslims and especially ethnic Albanians and Roma. This was more blatant disinformation because they used a forged document from allegedly from the Greek government, but it was quickly debunked also. So this type of disinformation is the subject of the analysis and countering by the Anti-Disinformation Network for the Balkans. It requires not only fact-checking, but also cooperation between the partners in order to, because even the fact-checkers do not know about the local circumstances. So for instance, we have had many constructive discussions with our friends from Greece, because even though we are very close neighbors, the political divides have resulted in much more ignorance and lack of knowledge about the local circumstances than should be allowed in a normal European country. So we hope that the network will continue to work in this area to help the region integrate, and we also invite more stakeholders, not only fact checkers, but half of the members of the networks are not specific fact-checking organizations, but organizations promoting responsible journalism or human rights. And this is also one of the ideas that through networking we would be able to solve some of these problems and help our societies thrive. Thank you.
Thank you, Philip. So let's continue now. We go to Greece. So Thanos, the floor is yours.
Hi everyone, please allow me a moment to share my screen. Okay, I hope you are all seeing this.
Yes, we are seeing it.
Great. First of all, thank you all for attending. My name is Thanos and I represent Ellinika Hoaxes. I would like to start by saying that we are delighted to be members of the Anti-Disinformation Network, which is a collaborative effort by several Balkan countries. For the past couple of years, we at Ellinika Hoaxes have established a very close relationship with Metamorphosis Foundation in North Macedonia, and we have worked together on several occasions in debunking fake news by exchanging information. So when we talk about cross-border disinformation, the Balkans should be a case study. Our region has suffered a lot since the end of the Cold War. For instance, Yugoslavia was plunged in a bloody civil war, and the successor states had trouble keeping pace with the rest of the region. Greece and North Macedonia were caught in an almost 30-year dispute regarding the latter's name. The name issue was resolved in July 2018 with the signing of the Prespa agreement. But the name dispute had caused and still is causing a nationalistic fervor in both countries, which we noticed especially shortly before and after the signing of the agreement, when we noticed a spike in related fake news and cross-border disinformation. Now, in order to illustrate this, I would like to present you with an example. In October 2018, a few months after the signing of the Prespa agreement and shortly before the parliamentary debate for the necessary constitutional reform in North Macedonia's parliament, several Greek media, including some notorious pro-Kremlin ones, claimed that the US ambassador Jeffrey Pyatt in Athens was allegedly involved in bribing North Macedonian MPs in order to vote in favor of the ratification of the agreement. They based their claim to an obscure website called Resau International. But by knowing what the source of the information for the aforementioned Greek media as being Resau International, we did our research and found out that in turn its source was the Lebanon-based controversial and untrustworthy website by the name Voltaire.net. Now, both websites seem to have connections with one another, and especially the Resau International with Sputnik France. Let me move that to the side. Voltaire.net seems to have connections with the Syrian government, according to Decotex, and is definitely a regular disinformer. Now, the two websites that I've already mentioned based the claim on an article from which was dated October 8, 2018, from Mina report, which is the first and original source of the information about bribes. And that website reported that the American ambassador in North Macedonia, Jess Bailey, is trying through a third person to bribe North Macedonian MPs with 2.5 million each to vote in favor of the name change. However, Mina report, which, as I said, is the original source of the information, did not provide any proof of the alleged bribery attempt, and also does not mention the name of the Greek, of the American ambassador in Greece, anywhere in its report. It's also worth noting that Mina report supports the opposition of the party of the official opposition in Skopje, which is the ultra-nationalist VMRO, which was against and still is against the Prespa agreement and its latter ratification by the North Macedonian parliament. In October 9th, Voltaire.net arbitrarily adds Pyatt's name, the American ambassador in Greece, to the claim that the United States are bribing North Macedonian lawmakers without citing the source of the information. As I said already, at that point it was picked up by the Resau International, and after that by Greek pro-Kremlin media. Now let's describe the path. The path of the disinformation, as I've already mentioned, began from North Macedonia. It reached Lebanon, then back to France, and then it landed in Greece. So, to conclude, the issue of cross-border disinformation is an important one in the Balkans, and Kremlin involvement must be factored in. Collaboration between Balkan countries in exchanging information is already yielding tangible results, as I already mentioned. So I will leave it at that for now, and I'll be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Thanos. So let's go now to Serbia. Milena Popovic from Crta, Istinomer. Milena, please. The floor is yours. You are on mute, Milena. Yeah.
Sorry. Thank you, Bardio. Well, hello, everyone. Thank you for attending this panel. Of course, thank you for the opportunity to participate in this panel and talk about such important theme like this, like a cross-border fight against the disinformation. I just want to share my screen. Just a second. Can you see my screen? Sorry. Okay. First of all, I just want to tell you just a few words about the Istinomer. Istinomer is the first fact-check medium in the region, which deals with the verification of facts told by public officials and politicians. Istinomer was created 10 years ago, and we've been fighting for the truth for more than 10 years now. Istinomer was primarily created in order to promote accountability of all actors for every word they say or promise they make. Initially, it was supposed to be a simple fact-checking project, but meanwhile, due to the lack of credible independent media in Serbia, we became a real medium aimed to fact-checking. On the other hand, Istinomer we want to include citizens into in our work by inviting them to keep track of what's being said, to carefully verify all they read, and to use their common sense when evaluating the truthfulness of different statements. When we talk about Balkan, well, the Balkan region is specific primarily due to the recent past that connects all the countries in the region, but also because a similar speaking area of one part of the countries. Due to the lack of language barrier, information is easily and quickly transferred, passed from one to another country, but with information, disinformation and fake and false news also spread quickly from one to another country. Well, since the onset of the health crisis caused by coronavirus, Istinomer has focused his work mainly on this topic, as well as the most fact-checking media in the world, of course, not just in the Balkans. First of all, because this topic has almost completely taken over the public space, but mainly because the amount of fake news has reached the huge proportions all over the world. So we can see fake news regarding the coronavirus since the beginning of the crisis, both on social networks and on the media also, traditional media also. The pandemic has shown the importance of fact-checking in the contemporary journalism, as well as the importance of credible media that check the information they place first. Another very important thing that this crisis has shown is how important it is trust between officials, representatives of institutions on one side, and with the citizens on the other side. That trust, as we know, it is being ruled out by responsible behavior, that is by the presentation of the truth and facts by officials. That is why we, as a fact checker, that's why we, as a fact checkers, focused our work mainly on this on this team, and primarily on the responsibilities of public officials when it comes to the fight against the virus coronas, and what we could hear from politicians as well as from representatives of the institution in charge of that fight. Unfortunately, it has been shown that even in such a situation that requires a seriousness and facts, politicians are not immune to distorting the truth, manipulating citizens, making unsubstantiated claims and information. In this crisis, this crisis shows us very well how quickly the disinformation is spreading in the previous months, and during the coronavirus pandemic. Namely, disinformation about the coronavirus traveled from one to another country, and the same fake news was often transmitted by the media in all Balkan countries, actually. I'll show you one example now. In one Macedonian show on Macedonian television Alpha, the professor Velo Markovski is his name, made claims that doubt the existence and danger caused by the coronavirus. A video interview in which this professor gives his view of the situation around the coronavirus was broadcast on the Macedonian television Alpha, so I said, and it was soon transmitted by portals through all the region, and the part of 15 minutes was translated into Serbian. The video was shared by a few Serbian media, and it was also shared by political actors on their accounts on social networks. Well, Istinomer, in a cooperation with the Macedonian colleagues, Metamorphosis, we checked the claims of this professor by consulting the World Health Organization and also the experts, health experts in Serbia. It turned out that the professor made a lot of unfounded and science unprovable claims. Also, I think that all of you had experience with information about the 5G network in a sense of coronavirus. Well, it's interesting that it's interesting that just a second. Sorry. I just find it. Well, even that most of fact-checking organizations in the world and also our colleagues from Croatia checked these claims and information about connection of 5G network and coronavirus. The daily newspapers in Serbia permanently published during the whole pandemic, published the stories about 5G networks in a relationship with coronavirus. So the Istinomer, we checked also, we checked that I think professors' claims and information, unnamed information and so we consult our colleagues from Croatia and detected that, of course, these information are not the truth. So when we talk about fake news in Serbia, well, the problem with Serbia in specific in relation to the countries in the region, because the mainstream media participate in placement of fake news. Almost all the press led by pro-regime tabloids, but also more or less all television. We can say that it is a serious, well, propaganda machine here in Serbia. The situation is such that most of the media, especially national frequencies, and are more or less openly in power. If they do not invent fake news in favor of the government and against, let's say, the opposition, they certainly keep silent about the topics of importance to the public that could shed a critical light of the ruling policy, which is also kind of a fake news, lying actually. Well, here in Serbia, the large portion of that fake news is generated by public officials who create a parallel reality, media and institution that are supposed to be the most accountability element of the social life. Well, I can just to show you a few examples. Well, in order to present their success to the citizens, the representatives of the ruling coalition permanently compare their results with the results of the governments from the region. This data most often refer to economic indicators, and well, the president of the Republic, Alexander Vučić, is in the forefront in that, and he has been bragging for years about he actually has a much better result in the economy than the countries in the region. Probably calculating that the citizens of Serbia cannot verify and check that data, he constantly presents completely fake information about the country in the region. For example, I think this is, yes, this is the claim from, I don't know, can you see this? Maybe too. Well, he incorrectly claimed, I think last year, that the countries of the region have twice a high employment than Serbia. In a collaboration with our colleagues, we checked these claims, and we can say that this is not the true. Also, we have example from also last year. He said, Alexander Vučić said that Serbia has that the Serbia. Sorry, just a second to see this. Well. Yes, that Serbia have the bigger cell than all the countries, just not Montenegro. This is also not true. Also, he said that the foreign direct investments well, in Serbia are higher than in all countries of West Balkans. Also, he said that.
Milena, you have 1 more minute. Sorry, just
okay,
for
yes,
time. Okay.
So yes, he also claimed that that the Serbia had the highest economic growth in Western Balkan. We also checked that, and in a cooperation with our colleagues, and we can see we could see it is not the truth. So I think that all these examples show us how it is important to collaborate in a fight against the disinformation and fake news. So I think this is all from me now. Of course, if you have any questions later, I'm here. Thank you.
Thank you, Milena. I would like also to thank all the panelists for their great presentations and the examples they gave us about the importance of the regional cooperation and how disinformation are circulating around the region and also affecting our political processes and all other kinds of processes. So just to give more time to questions or comments, now at the moment at the chat we have 2 questions. The first is from Jignesh, a fact checker with based in India, a media outlet called Alt News, and he's asking that. Just let me read again the question. If any legal action has been initiated against the bad actors propagating the disinformation. And also, do the organizations involved in this collaboration republish stories from each other platforms? Who wants to answer that question? Philip, okay, please. But unmute first.
Sorry. Yes, in North Macedonia, there were announcements that the government would take legal actions against those who spread disinformation about the pandemic, because the pandemic triggered a state of emergency, where previously, when there were normal circumstances, there was no laws that prohibit disinformation. People can lie, media can lie, and that's why the civil society, the journalist community, has put over the years emphasis on the self-regulation and trying to create an atmosphere where lying would be culturally inappropriate. However, the only legal actions related to disinformation are civil suits about slander and libel, as far as we know. Even though there were blatant attempts to sow disinformation against the criminal code under conditions of pandemic, we don't have publicly available information that the courts have initiated proceedings so far.
Thank you, Philip. Does anyone want to add anything to this? Okay, then the second question is from Teofil Blaževski from Vistinomer, Macedonia. His question is related to public funds or grants that can be given to fact-checking organizations and fact-checkers to do their job. Do you, recognizing that the work that all fact-checkers do is very important, do you think it is appropriate to use public funds? And were you approached by the governments while doing your job to get support for them? Or have you applied for grants from the government or other public funds?
I can respond if so. To give an example of Albania, if you are okay, Bardur.
Okay. Yes, sure.
Okay, so for the I can give the example of Albania. We have the politician has this package, anti-defamation package, so against to all the freedom of the media, and we have more than 600 portals, online portals that all over Albania. Most of them we don't know which are from whom they financing, so where the money comes. So it's very important for us as fact checking to apply to the grant, so we have independence and nobody can tell us that we have to go with these facts or not, because the pressure is very high. Also, I wanted to add that about the problems that we have with the legal problems. So we as Albania now have sued 12 institutions, the presidents and all the ministries that didn't give us the information that we need about the receipts and all the expenditure that the head of this institution has made 1 year before. And now we feel all the pressure from this institution that doesn't want to give all the information that it's important for the Albanian people. But in Albania, if you take the public funds that are for the the public television, let's say the law doesn't allow us to take this money, and in the other hand, the pressure of the politician or the private company, it's really high. So we can't do our work, and another fact is because we are a small country and all the peoples knows each other.
Thank you, Claudie. Anything to add, or can I go on with the next question?
Yes, I would like to add something about the state in North Macedonia, if I may, please. So in North Macedonia,
Vladimir, very briefly, please, because there
yeah,
are
sure.
other questions. Yes.
Okay, just 2 sentences. I just want to say that last year, the government of North Macedonia opened up a discussion and created a commission regarding the media literacy, and they developed a whole draft program, but nothing came out of it. And up until this day, there are no fact-checking grants from the government. That's all I wanted to add.
Okay, thanks. Thanks. The next question is from Alan Mippen. The question is, how do you measure the positive impact of your fact-checking? This question is for everyone, so please, any good example from the region on how we measure the positive impact of what we do?
So I would like to add. I would like to answer this question once again as a Truth Meter editor here in North Macedonia. So we report every 3 months, and of course we report even more often when we think that something important has happened or that there is something that we need to say. So qualitative indicator and quantitative indicators. Of course, when it comes to quantitative indicators, we follow all the indicators we can find, like number of visitors, the page views on our website and on our social media properties. But we also cover a lot of qualitative indicators. For example, for us, it is very important to be able to show that the policymakers do read our content and they act upon it. And this is something that we see regularly, especially from the mayors. So we always find something that the mayors have shared, or mayors also talk to us through comments, and of course even the ministry. So we have instances where the ministries, when they are not satisfied with our fact checks, especially the fact checks of our election promises, when we say that this election promise was not fulfilled, then of course they react and talk to us. So once again, it is also very important for us that our content is read widely, and like in the last edition of the IFCN bulletin and Pointer bulletin, one of our articles was featured there, and that was very important for us.
Okay, thank you, Vladimir. Then another question to Thanos from Violeta. Do fact checkers in Greece cooperate with safer internet centers, especially with internet hotline provider organizations?
No, the answer is no. We focus especially in collaborating with members of our alliance. As I mentioned before, we have a very strong cooperation with Metamorphosis. We would like to enhance our cooperation, establish a more thorough cooperation, and enhance with the rest of the members of the alliance. So at the moment, we're focusing on that.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Thanos. Then the next question is from Alexander Ichokaev. So the question is, well, I will read the entire message. The self-regulations seem to be non-applicable, according to Alexander. Is there any example in the region of decision makers accepting the need to impose regulation by the state as a result of input and collaboration with media associations? So the point here is that Alexander thinks that self-regulation is non-applicable, it's not working. So do you have any example from countries in the region where decision makers accept the need to impose regulation by the state in order to make, to regulate the media sphere, to combat disinformation, etc.?
Albania is in this process. So for 1 year, more than 1 year, the civil society, but also a lot of media has contested the package of defamation package that the Prime Minister and the government want to pass. And they think that the media can't be can go to the process of self-regulation. So we as a civil society, but also a lot of media has been many times to discuss with the member of the government why they don't have to pass this defamation package. So Albania is one example regarding this question.
Thank you, Claudia. So another question from Jignesh. Can you cite some specific example where disinformation has visibly affected individuals, institutions, or the politics of your region at large?
If I may.
Please.
Definitely, there was lots of misinformation about the PRESPA agreement that I mentioned earlier. This agreement solved the 30-year-old dispute. So the volume of disinformation and misinformation was huge. And it had also a huge impact on the public opinion. So that's why we work together and we try to stem the tide of misinformation that actually led to nationalistic fervor and acts even of violence during the protests.
Yeah, so Bardil, if it's possible, I would like to add an example too, and I'm afraid it's the same example as my colleague from Greece. So the disinformation during the naming referendum in Macedonia, really, I think that it really influenced the referendum outcome. I mean, as I suppose many of you know, the outcome was not obligatory for the government, and the reason for that was the very real possibility that there will be a lot of disinformation as it was. I mean, I can remember that during that campaign before the referendum, there were so many disinformation we couldn't even catch up. And it was not only internal, but it was external. So some of the anti-referendum actors, they even used Vietnamese bots to denigrate the opinions of the pro-referendum activists. And during that period, like in those 2 months, dozens upon dozens Facebook pages against the referendum. There was a hate speech, calls on violence, discrimination of all types. So I can freely say that those 2 months before that naming referendum, there was an overflow of disinformation, and that overflow was managed and it was implemented in an organized way, unfortunately. Thank you.
Thank you, Vladimir. I don't see any other question. So do you have anything to add, Philippe? You want to say something? Please unmute yourself and continue.
Yes, I would like just to follow up on the example that Milena showed about that professor who is a medical doctor but didn't actually do research on as part of his job. He was just giving his opinions, and one of his opinions was that ventilators are deadly or that they are useless, but people who get on ventilators die. So it was complete logical fallacy. The ventilators are used during the last stages of the disease, so it's expected that some of these people will not survive because their situation is at the worst stage. However, this disinformation was then used by some people they were named in some villages in North Macedonia, who actually refused to get tested, even though it was determined that there is the epidemic has reached those villages, and they refused to get tested and preferred to stay at home and use local remedies, or the remedies that were part of disinformation, like Sumamed or others, who they were by politicians even from the US. They were claiming that this or other medical cure can help you. So people would buy out the whole stock of that cure from the pharmacies. But this was actually resulting in deaths of people, because when they were trying to cure themselves, they would reach the doctors too late. And many of the deaths in the country were because people refused to get tested or only went to the doctor when it was clear that nothing else can help them. So in the last stages of the disease, when really there was no help. So it is really, disinformation is not only politically damaging, it's deadly. And that's why we have to fight it. The one thing is that, for instance, this type of health disinformation is also tied to politics. For instance, in the ex-European countries, there are health magazines which are branded with, they're both promoting Russia, but they're also promoting miracle cures like Putin's tea or something like that. And now their latest issue, so this is called Russian Herbalist, they promote different cures and different pseudoscience or miracle medicines they're selling. But the topic of this issue is get ready for the fight against 5G, and they recommend eating garlic or something like that. I mean, it is really something that affects a wide range of population, even some people who don't directly trust them. This type of disinformation affects the decisions on health issues, like, okay, I'll postpone this, I'll try to eat the garlic until it's too late, and it's really, really scary.
Thank you, Philip. I don't see any other question. Is anyone from the panelists do you want to add anything that you think it's important to share with all the participants or anyone else?
Maybe I just can add just one information with Philip. Well, the magazines that Philip shows, actually the publisher of that magazines is one of the most reading newspaper in Serbia, a daily newspaper, Večernje Novosti, and of course that newspaper is in a really close relationship with the Serbian government. So those magazines are very popular actually in Serbia. So it is very dangerous because of their, of course, because of their popularity. Thank you.
So I think there is one more question, and I think this will be the last question for today. From Alan again. So no, from HA. I don't know who HA is, but how do you think technology can help? So in detecting misinformation that could cross borders or affect people across or within borders. Yeah, Philip.
Okay.
Well, it's very important that technology can help us relate to each other and share the information. We are part of the Corona Facts Alliance, where we translate some of the disinformation that is most impactful. And this database has proven very helpful because compare, and we can even anticipate if the disinformation that is available in one country will somehow or very soon come to us. And we, in some cases, through our cooperation within the network, by actually following up what we actually do, or warning each other, we have been able in some cases to anticipate different types of disinformation, which is, if we disseminate it before it is spread in the mainstream media or in the social networks, then the fact check is acting as a preventive measure, as a prophylactic, not as, and then it is more like inoculation than treatment.
So I would like to add something to what Philip said. So yeah, we think that technology can help immensely, and there are tools out there in the market that can help us in different ways to find out who is behind the disinformation, who publishes the website, how is that website working, how is that website sharing their content on the social media, which social media pages or profiles does it use, and so that we can find out, so also that there are tools that can help us find out how the disinformation travels through the social media. And there are many of those tools that can be of great help. But of course, first of all, we need access to those tools, and then we need education, and we need resources. And actually, the resources, as always, are the most important. So we need people who will be able to educate themselves in using those tools, and then use them day in and day out, so that they can become proficient, and so that they can serve the fact checkers with this information, which can be very useful for the fact checkers to connect all the dots when they're fact checking some disinformation.
Okay, thank you, Vladimir. If there are no other questions, I would like first to thank our panelists for their great presentations and examples, and also to all the participants for their engagement, their questions, and their comments. And I will not try to sum up all that was said, but just in one sentence, maybe, that cross-border cooperation is extremely important, that recognizing and identifying the sources of misinformation and the promoters of those hostile agendas and speaking about them openly, denouncing them, is also very important. And that we should continue to do fact check, and we recognize that fact checking alone is not enough, but other approaches are also necessary in order to diminish the negative effect that disinformation, misinformation, and propaganda have in our societies. So thank you again, everyone, and I hope to see you soon, but not online through screens, but live. Stay safe, and until next time, have a good week. Bye.